The video shown here is the repair, not the replacement, of the manual window regulator of a 2006 Ford Focus ZX3, which is the 3-door, not the 4-door. I do not remove or reinstall the window regulator inside the door, as there are plenty of really good videos on doing that. However, I'm showing you this here as I did want you to see from the get-go that I did get it fixed, and that's what we're going to be doing in this video. An entire replacement regulator is probably going to run you between $40 and $100 or something, depending on where you get it from and screwing around with online retailers and such. We're not doing that. We're fixing the one that we got, which we're able to do, fortunately. This video is about 40 minutes long, which is pretty long. And that might take you longer to watch the video than it will to do the actual repair, if you know what's in there, which is pretty much the point of this video, is to show what's in there. This would be especially true if all you've got is a jumped cable and you just need to put that back on. However, it is a 40-minute video, so we're going to show you a tool in the YouTubes that you can speed this up. So if you look down here, we're going to start that, and we're going to see, you can see the cursor in here. We're going to do playback speed, and we're going to crank the playback speed up to two times. This is all going to speed up so you can kind of see what I'm doing in here. You'll also notice along the bar we've got the thumbnails on here. So again, you can see kind of what's going on and figure out if this video is actually even going to be for you, or we go in whatever direction that you're wanting to. So with that, we'll bring you 2006 Ford Focus.
This is the passenger side window regulator from a 2006 Ford Focus. This is a manual, which you can barely see the handle. But this is a manual. This is not the automatic or the power window. It's a little tough to get it all in shot. I really dislike this view, but we're going to do it anyways. So just to tell you, this, as you can see both of these are traveling okay. This thing is fixed up-ish. We're gonna look at it. It was not always the case. I had some time ago the windows were frozen, and I thought I would try and crank them down, and they were kind of stuck. So what do? And I popped one of these out of here, and it got jammed in behind the pulley. And didn't know that, still kept trying. I'm assuming that this thing ended up becoming a bit of a rat's nest in here. We're going to get a better view, and we're going to look at these more close up. But the point is that I didn't have to actually replace anything. I'm going to have to fix some stuff that I've damaged to open this up. And the big challenge with this whole experience is how to wind this spool up, get it in there, get all this stuff together, and have it actually work, rather than trying to figure out how to muscle with it. So we'll get with a different view, and we'll see how this works. So here's a different view of kind of the same thing. You can see the trolleys here and here, which bring the window up and down. We're still doing this and that. When I took this apart to figure out what's going on, again, this had frozen. I had the frozen window jump out of the track thing going on. We'll look at this one, and the cable had actually come off and was underneath this pulley. It was underneath there. I'm not sure if it was this exact pulley or not. I got this line up and back onto the pulley, and it still wasn't working. So I just figured it's got to be something in here, and it probably was. This didn't look great, so we started taking some things apart. A couple of magic tricks that I wanted to make sure to get into this video is there's obviously two sides to this, and if you look very closely, you'll see that I've got this I've got this reassembled improperly, and I'm going to have to fix that up. So we're going to take that off. I drilled out the fasteners that hold this on. Totally not necessary. So we're going to see if we can get this thing back to how it was oriented before, which is like that. So when you pull your handle off, this is probably what you're looking at again on the Ford Focus, and the back side is this. I put that tape on. I drilled. If you can avoid it, you might as well avoid drilling out these four because it does not matter. On the back side, there are three. There are 1, 2, 3. They're not rivets. They're like rolled over tubes as part of this sheet metal stamping that hold this in place. These are going to be easy to fix up. I could throw rivets in there. I could throw little bolts. There's plenty of space to do whatever, zip ties and JB Weld, which we all love. But I did that. Did not need to waste of time. So what's going to happen is if you don't do like me and you open up these ones first, this will come off as one piece. And this is what you'll see, and it will all still be stuck together because you didn't do like me. And put that to the side. This is, I guess we'll call this the spool holder. Two sides of that. Gear tooth spool, your cable goes around this. We're going to be visiting that more later. However, if you don't open this up, but you're curious what's in here, I already did, and we'll just take a look at that. So what's going to happen is you take that off. If you bust out these four fasteners, which I don't advise doing if you don't need to, this will come off. This is I guess we'll call this the carrier for the handle keyway thing, which is going to sit on like that and spins this pinion gear, which is going to go into that. So we've taken this cover off. That's coming out. That locks into here. This comes into here. So if you did do that and you're needing to put this together, that's going to come in like that. That's going to come in like that. There's a trick here with this, and hopefully I got the light on so that you can see there's a spring inside of there, which has little ears on it. Not a big deal, but you want to make sure to orient this so that these ears are we'll just do like that. So you see, this is wrong. This is wrong. This is right, and we'll show you why this is correct. So we're going to put the handle on it, and we can spin it, and there's a little bit of preload in there from that spring which is inside of this housing. So we're going to do this incorrectly. If I can get it out without taking the spring with me. Let's do that again. Come on, get up in there. Okay, good enough. So we're gonna put one of these ears in between. I guess we'll call them the fingers on that spring. So we'll do like that. And what's going to happen is when you spin this, it's going to force the spring outward, and you're not going to be able to spin that. And you'll notice that when you try and turn this thing, and what's going on here? This isn't. Well, in this case, it's forcing the spring out, but you might want to test that. It actually forced itself into position. That's exciting. Well, so you're going to want to make sure that if you made the mistake of taking this whole panel apart, you want to make sure that this is spinning before you put it back together again. You're going to have to redo it. So that's the thing. You don't need to take this off, or take that off last. And there's the other, what I think is the tricky bit that helped out a lot as far as getting this thing getting the cable wound on here and putting it together was, these are shims. These are just standard plastic shims. You know, really anything that you can jam in there is going to be fine. You can just cram one in here and then put another behind. And this will lock the cable onto the spool, despite taking it out. So I'm going to take all the pressure off of this thing, and we'll just show you what that looks like. It's obviously, if your thing all works out okay, you don't need to do this. So this is all together, and what I'm going to do here is this cable, I'm going to pull it up, and you can see there's some architecture. Let's see if we can get a decent focus. There's some architecture on this pulley which allows you to put the cable around this top piece, which it's on there, and that's, I guess we'll call that a preliminary to getting the cable around this entire thing. First thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pull one of these lips back here so that you can get the cable around, and you can bang that back into position. I've already done that here. So let's see. I'm using needle nose pliers, and I'm sticking them into the, I guess we'll call it the architecture of this pulley. No, that's okay. So again, this part is not going to be important as I'm taking it apart. And if it's all together properly, we might not want to, but we'll just do it anyways. This technique, we're going to be revisiting this when we put it back together again. So if you look carefully, you can see that I've got the cable. It's off of the pulley, and it's on top of the pulley into this, I guess we'll call it a smaller, that would be a cam-shaped pulley. And I will continue. This will be okay. So I'll continue to do that, and it's going to ride up. The cable's going to ride up into this. And then it's going to drop onto this upper portion, which will take substantial tension, out of this whole thing. So when we put this back together, we're going to hop that up on there again, which will help us getting this thing put together, because when you get it together, it's all pretty tight. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pull it off from here. Maybe you won't even see that, but that'll be okay. There, so that's this. So the cable's off. These obviously are the clamps for the window, and perhaps you can see how these will just come off now. They have an L-shaped guard in them, and they slide up and down this portion of the I don't know, call it a rail, and then you're just going to drop those in there, and they just excuse me, let's get a better view for that. And then they just sit there, and then once tension is applied, it holds them on. And it holds them on well, and that's fine. And if this is in front of your face, this whole thing will make much more sense to you, because it's really not that challenging. So we'll get back to this and the magic bit. So if we look here at these which hold the cables in, when this is under pressure, these are in here like that, and there's zero play, but they've come out now, and we're gonna work with those as we pull this thing apart. So this just comes out, and that just comes out, but yet if you look, you can see that the spool is still in there, and the line is still hooked up. So I could put all this stuff back together, and it'll be fine. And this spool is not falling out or whatever. Using these shims was really very nice. The second magical bit was to put these in here and figure out some kind of a clamp to keep these together. This is what I happen to just sort of have around, and I figured, yeah, I'll try that. You can use a ton of different stuff to do this. So we're going to just walk that in and hold that together-ish. Come on, get up in there. Well, I've had better experience with this. Moving it around too much doesn't help. But the idea is to clamp this thing together so that you're providing yourself as much slack in these cables so that you can get them over these and it works out. So those are the magical bits. To recap the magical bits, this is going to help you put it in. And this thing, see, we're going to take this out because I have to put it back together again to do it right. We'll put this together quick like. And you want to find your pieces. You know, another thing that I should have suggested at the very beginning is take some photos. Just take some photos of this stuff once you pull it out, and so you can get it back together. But you know, essentially, magic bits, shims. You don't need to cut these out, but you need to cut these ones out in order to get inside of here. And some kind of a clamping experience to put these together is going to help you out. And so with that, I'm going to pull this out, and then we're going to start talking about how to rewind this thing and then put it in, and we'll put it back together. So I've pulled this spool out of this housing, and I was able to get this out without all the lines coming off. They have to come off because I'm needing to mount this differently. However, I did want to show what this looks like loaded, and if you notice that up here, all of these grooves here for cables are loaded. So when you load this up, all of these are going to be loaded. Yes, I don't know what I did there, but whatever. So here we go. So I'm going to put that together in a second, and we'll show you how that process works out. All right, take two-ish. We're doing it. So this is actually, so again, you can see how these things lay in here kind of nicely based on the cables that you got, if they're all still in good shape, which hopefully they are, and how they lay in peacefully. So in example, this one. This barrel, which I hope that's a good focus, is going to go straight down into, this is the bottom. This is the actual bottom of the spool. We're going to push that into the bottom of the spool, and then it kind of lays over. Fortunately for me in this one, it's been there for a while, and that's how it wants to be. So we're just going to start winding it around. We're going to start winding it around. Maybe push that in a little bit more. Yeah, like that. And you know, this is going to be kind of tedious and futzy, and it's going to jump off on you, and you're going to need to do it a couple times, and eventually you'll get it, and maybe I'll even get it this time around. I'm going to wind this thing around to that point. This is about halfway across the spool, and then we'll just hold it right here, and then we'll start with the other one, which this one, if we can, let's see if we can get up a little closer. If you can look at the barrel on this, hopefully we get a focus on that. Well, this is the top, and this one is just going to lay flat in there, where the other one stabbed in. This one lays flat, and then you can see it. You know, it drops right in there. Again, this being the old cables that were in place all the time. So then we're going to spin this around in the opposite direction, trying to hang on to the existing cable. And then we'll call it a day right there. So this, I'm pinching it in between my fingers right here. Both of these are loose, but I got a pinch on it, and I think we're going to be okay. So these cables are going to need to run through this channel, and then we'll do like that. And this is the tricky bit. So we'll try and change hands here. And then we're going to try and drop it in. And hopefully this whole thing will so you see I'm pulling it from the back. And it's, you know, it's still tricky. It's still kind of tricky getting it in there. But you're going to hit it. You need to get it in there square. And it would help if I had this in the right direction. Actually, I'm glad this happened because I got the teeth need to be facing up. So you can yeah, we can all learn together, I guess. So you can see this is a good hold. I've got tension in my hands, and I'm pressing it down like that. And you know, kind of doing that a little bit while you're coming down with it helps a lot. So we're going to flip that over and see if we can hang on to these. And it's at this point where you can maybe see how I have it, where I've got tension on both sides of this. Now is where we're going to put the shims in, and I'm going to do them one at a time. So I'm going to make sure to get them in behind. I'm going to make sure to get them in behind the cable, and then feed towards the spool. And then this other one I will put in behind there. So that's that. And this is locked in. And I can kind of do whatever with that. And these aren't coming off the spool, and this thing's ready to go. So I'm going to go outside and make sure that I've got this even in here on the proper orientation to work with this plate, so that I can put it back in, and then we'll come visit the final-ish assembly. So 3 things I should say. First of all, I did have this mounted in here improperly as relates to the bolt holes on the inside of the door. So I flipped that off camera. That was not very challenging because we kind of understand how this is going on. Secondly, if you've put up with me wearing mismatched gloves, that's fine. A, you can get over it, and B, congratulations for sticking with. And the third and most important thing is that as you're putting this together, pick a lubricant and put lubricant in all of these sliding places. I'm going to be taking this apart and lubing this before it comes together finally, but we're sort of doing this lubeless. We're doing this dry for purposes of the video. So right now, we'll get back to putting this together. This is as you are looking at it from the inside of the vehicle, and the pulleys are facing the outside. So this is how we want this oriented. We want to have this in behind this thing, oriented in that fashion, so when this plate goes back on it, the bolt holes are proper. But we need to tighten this thing up. We need to get at the pulleys on the opposite side. So we're just going to flip this whole thing over. Let's flip this whole mess over, and it'll be fine because our shims are locking that in. And this thing, we can flip this over all day, and it's going to be okay. So we're looking at the pulleys. And unfortunately, again, you can barely see this stuff. What we want to do is we want to first just sort of start wrapping stuff around the pulleys, making sure that these guides are just on there. They're going to line up okay based on how long the cable is. And our first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to close this up. We're going to want to close this thing up, get these in here, and then get this cap on. And after that, we're going to finally snap the cable over. We're going to finally have one loose pulley, and then we're going to snap the cable over that using the wheel like we did before. So let's. Tell you what, I'm going to just shut the camera off, and I'm going to line all of this stuff up, which it is important to also to mention that at the ends of these cables is this, I'm going to call it a guide or an end or whatever, and you need to have all of these properly socketed before you start putting tension on it, because these are a component in the tension of it, as is the spring tension in this, where we're going to be visiting this clamp later. So I'm going to just kind of get all this together, and then we'll get with some of the final points, and it's in that way that we win. So I pretty much laced this thing together the way it's supposed to go. These are the carriers for the window, and they need to be rested on here. The cable is over 3 of the 4 pulleys. This one, this one, this one, and not this one, because we're going to use this one to tighten it. We're not going to be using this one because this does not rotate. This is just a guide, so we're going to do that. We've got all of our ends, all of these. This is a good view. All of these ends are pushed in, and the cable housings are pushed into the ends so that we're pretty close to it. And then this piece in the center, we've got these slotted in there. So I'm going to try and see if this little clampy guy will work out for me. And that's going to be okay. So we'll start pulling the tension in. Let's see if I can move this without. So obviously this needs to take up the whole frickin' screen, but maybe we can get this one. So the pulleys are over everything except for this one, and we're going to use this one to tighten it. These are all the window carriers. They're all in place, and we've applied some tension to this. And if you can look closely, you can barely see from that view. But once this tightens up, there's going to be zero. There's going to be zero spring left in that. So we're using these again, and perhaps you can see that. But we're going to be using this. There's an inside pulley on that, and we're going to use that. Excuse me. We're going to get this. This is the end cap. We're going to get that on there and socket that in first. And I lost my clamp. I think we can make it work without it. Let's try. Yeah, there's a good view. So we're going to start spinning this, and we're going to use the nose from the pliers and put this in one of the features on this pulley, which will in effect drag this in there. And I'm going to change this view so we can get a better view of that, because this is an important part of the whole process. Okay, so the clamp on the springs around the housing, I've figured out how to restore that. That's going to be pretty important. And what we're going to do is we've got a close-up here on this pulley. This is the last pulley. This is a good time to check around your entire setup and make sure that your cables are all where you want them to be in the guides and the end caps. So at this point, we are going to take the needle nose, and hopefully you can see this. So I pushed it into the little pointy end on this top, and I'm rotating to catch this cable, and then I'm going to keep rotating through it. So hopefully you can see that I'm pressing my thumb around this to catch it. So at this point we've caught it a little bit, but we're going to keep spinning. And we get here. Now that's snapped over, and what that's done is that you can see that that's snapped over the inside pulley, but this lower one is on here. So we're going to keep spinning it. And that's it. That's on. So we're going to it's at this point, let's see, I'll try to gently zoom out here. So it's at this point, all the cables are on. You can see how crazy my clamp got to make this, do something better than what I did with this, because this just, you got some other options. I'm sure you can use like one of these, I'm sure you can use a squeezy clamp and it would work a lot better than this. This is what I had laying around. So this is now loose. As you can see, there's zero play in these springs. This is tight. These can come out now, and this thing is fine. This is a good time to lubricate everything that you think you want lubricated. I'm not being too picky about the lubricants. I'm probably going to put white litho on all of this stuff. That might not be the way to go. But this is an opportunity to put all this stuff on. And just kind of check your work here. Now, again, you shouldn't have taken this off if you did it right. But I need to make sure that that's on there correctly. Otherwise, this won't spin. And it's at this point. Alright, so I've put all this together for the most part. We're going to kind of squeeze all this together and give this a spin. What I want you to see is these both going up and down, and I want you to notice that I think I did something wrong here. which is nice because, see, you hear that clicking? I've probably got a cable in there. I've probably got a cable inside this spool crossed, and I'm going to need to clean that up. And that's going to be okay. I can do that pretty simply at this point. But and again, I'll be redoing this whole process, which will hopefully go a lot quicker because I'm not going to be videotaping now. But this window regulator is a worker, and I'll get this together and get this installed, and I'll have avoided a bunch of stuff. And at that point, I can obviously lubricate all of this stuff and putting it together. Let's we'll talk briefly about putting this together. So I'll be opening this up again anyways because I did something screwy, and we can even look at that. See what I did. Like these are crossed in here somewhere, like they're laying on top of each other. Yeah, I can see that. So I'm gonna have to pull this out, and I'm gonna have to rewind that, and that'll be fine. If you had, so I'm sort of thinking about how to put this thing back together again, sort of on the fly. This is easy. You can do anything with this. You could put little bolts in there. I wouldn't. I'd be if you wanted to use the JB Weld and some zip ties. Actually, maybe even just the zip ties by themselves would be fine. JB Weld you might get in some weird spots. Whatever. I'm actually probably going to be using rivets. I'm probably going to be using rivets and flat washers, as there's limited clearance underneath this thing. I might, and again, if you can avoid cutting this thing off, you don't need to do that. I did. It's unfortunate. Moving along. So probably going to use rivets. Probably going to put a rivet under here. Rivet under here. And a washer on the top. And just come down with that, and hopefully that'll break off, and I'll have clearance in there for that. I might need to hammer this down a little bit, but that's my problem. Hopefully not yours if you don't need to take this off. Backside, same story. The rivets are going to probably work out really well here. We'll pull that off, 'cause that's certainly not helpful. And on this side, you can stick anything in there. You got plenty of space to put whatever. So if I was to stick, okay, well, there we go. We'll do that. So stick a rivet back in there, and then back up that rivet with a washer. That's going to be really simple. It's going to go on really quickly. I'll probably do that. Bolts, zip ties would probably hold this thing together pretty reliably. An adhesive like a JB Weld, would probably be okay, but I wouldn't want to get that around there. So we'll do this, and then the next shot we'll show you the window going up and down. Okay, for real last shot before we put this in the car, I'm gonna have a hard time cranking this thing with it slammed together like this. So we're just gonna show you the one side. And what you want to see is this thing going up and down smoothly without making any funny gritchy noises, which it did the last time. It made some gritchy noises, and then I opened this up and straightened that out, and that was fine. It wasn't a big deal, and I certainly didn't damage anything, and I was happy to find that out before this all got installed. But so that's moving. And then we're gonna lube this whole thing up, put it together with my little whatever repair on these fasteners, which again you can do anything, and then we'll put this in the car, and hopefully we'll see the window going up and down. So let's continue to belabor the point that this metal cap you don't need to disassemble, as it comes off from the back. However, I did, and I needed to put it back together now. So what I've done is gone ahead and I'm going to put this together with the rivets This is facing the inside of the mechanism. Yeah, there we go. This is going to be facing the inside of the mechanism. So I took a pen and I scribed a circle around here. I need to make a little clearance on this as it's kind of a tight fit on this guy. So I need to make a little space under there. And I'm really not entirely clear how much. So what we've done is found, this is a selection of punches. This is just a round thing that has diameter which fits good with that. I've already punched 3 of the 4 of these and block of wood. And then we're just going to see if you've got a view, which you do. Hammer. And then I'm just going to kind of roll around here. So when this all comes together, this is going to be lifted. This whole thing is going to be lifted up slightly because I hammered it. I feel like I've got enough clearance in there. But we're going to put it together and see what happens. Okay, so as you can see, this is together. I put some white litho under this cap, sort of put everything together, made sure to test that this thing actually spins in both directions well before I locked this down and make sure I got that spring correctly. This all went down pretty well. So if you can look at the bottom side here, you can see that the rivet heads are pretty flush. We'll use this hole. Just put that in there. Rivet goes in there, and then we put the washer on the back side. Draw the rivet down with rivet gun, and then these fasteners are what you get, and hopefully we'll get a better focus on this. But hammered this down a little bit. Clearance was nice. As you can see, as you can see on this side, the rivet heads, these, I guess we'll call these the draw pins on the rivet. They came out well underneath the surface of this rivet head, so I didn't have to grind those off to make some clearance. All is well and good. So we put this, we'll just sort of put that on there. Get up on there. What are you doing? There we go. And if we get you that, we'll spin this thing out. And this goes full travel, both sides, 0 problems. We're good there. So then we're going to come back in here, take that off. This piece, I actually fit into the car. These are the bolt holes where it goes on to fit that into the car. There's plenty of clearance for this. I can feel like I distorted this a little bit as these fasteners are just ever so slightly tighter, but everything worked out fine. So this went in, put the handle on, plenty of space for that. There's plenty of space on the panel that goes over that for all of this stuff, and I should be pretty good. So the next thing to do here really is to throw some white litho in, which I threw some white litho underneath here if I didn't mention. And we'll put some white litho on here. Put this together maybe with zip ties so that I can undo it if things go haywire. But we'll lube that up, put that in, and then we'll try it out.